All right, good morning, everyone. It is 11 a.m. on November 29th, and we're going to call the regular Electric Utility Board meeting to order.
This is 11 o'clock, and we are now calling this meeting to order. I believe we have called to order before executive session.
Yes, sir.
We are now called to order.
Anyone signed up for public comment? All right, brings us to item 3. Kevin and Jane are not here, correct? Okay. Well, we're going to recognize Mrs. Jane Henry and Mr. Kevin McMahon. Mrs. Henry served on the board from 2014 to 2022, and then Kevin served on the board from 2018 to 2022. So 2 terms for him and 4 for Mrs. Henry. So I would like to, well, they're not here, tell everyone that we appreciate their service for Ms. Henry. 8 years of that. It's a lot of time spent here for the ratepayers and everyone else. And then with Kevin, we appreciate his service as well for 4 years. So I don't know if anyone else would like to say anything, but me personally, it was great getting to serve with them.
I appreciate their time and attendance. Dan, I appreciate their time and attendance. You know, it was very important. Jane was very valuable, and so was Kevin. So I think we ought to give them a round of applause. So.
Ms. Stafford?
In terms of benefit to the community in this board, Jane Henry was the one on the board when the decisions were talked about going with coal generation. And I think Dave McCalla said that she was the one that really helped put the brakes on it, which she was very wise in seeing that that was not the road to go down and spending that money and that fuel source. So I certainly appreciate her and Kevin, that CPA that always kept us straight. They were wonderful additions to this board, and they'll be missed.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
There we go. I think it would be remiss if we didn't just acknowledge that the things that Kevin and Jane, particularly Jane, because she's been here so long, the things that this board, including those 2 members, have seen are things, and you've heard me say this before, these are things that you could go your entire career and not get to be a part of. So transitioning from one interconnection in the United States to another one, nobody does that. These 2 were there for that process. To vote on bringing this utility into the retail market, nobody really does that as a municipality. They were there to make sure that that was going to happen. Jane, in particular, was on me quite a bit to make sure that we were giving a fair amount of examination into renewable energy products and things like that. So that was really close and near and dear to her heart. And, of course, Kevin was there to cast his votes for all these things that or against that we were doing as a group. So I just appreciate the acknowledgement to them. I'm sorry they're not here. We could have really embarrassed them quite a bit, which is our goal, but we do certainly appreciate their service and look forward to what our 2 new members are going to be bringing as well.
Yes. And at that, we will introduce Petra and Dr. Gonzalo Ramirez. Thank you guys for stepping in and taking their places. All right. We are now recessing into executive session in accordance with 1 VTCA Government Code 551.086 on competitive matters of Lubbock Power and Light, 2 VTCA Government Code 551.071 seeking advice of and consultation with Lubbock Power and Light's attorneys on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Chapter 551 of the Government Code, and seeking advice of its attorneys about pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers.
Thank you, Dan. City Council will hold an executive session today for the purpose of consulting with city staff regarding the following: competitive matters of the public power utilities under Section 551.086 of the Texas Government Code, and pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers, and hold consultation with the attorney under Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code.
Thank you, Mayor. We are recessing second floor. Thank you. All right. It is 12:45, and the Electric Utility Board is reconvening into open session for the November 29th board meeting. Brings us to item 6, approve the minutes of the regular Electric Utility Board meeting held on October 18th, 2022.
So moved.
Have a motion, need a second? A second. Anything there? If not, take a vote. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same? That one passes. Item 7. Director?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our two newest members that we got. Dr. Ramirez, glad to have you on board. Ms. Gambles, thank you so much for agreeing, and you're still here, so that's a good sign. We went through orientation yesterday, and I just knew that they were going to run away, so thank you for signing on. We do appreciate having you all here. I want to go over two things. I want to update you on the pro forma tariff, and I really want to give accolades out to staff. Jamie and her group in the business office put a lot of effort into this. Jenny put a tremendous amount of effort into getting this pushed across. And when I talk about the pro forma tariff, this is basically a tariff governed by the Public Utility Commission that sets more or less the general terms and conditions for the relationships between us and the retail electric providers that will start in November of next year, if all goes according to plan. These are general terms, and you can see some of the bullet points I've got covering like consolidated billing, security deposits. This applies to everybody that's in the retail market that does business with the resident utility, which is who we will be. The issue that we had with the pro forma tariff was it was created and then last revised in 2001. Now, the market opened for the first time ever to retail competition in 2002. So this pro forma tariff has not been touched since then. Nueces Electric Cooperative came into the market under this particular pro forma tariff, but it fit their needs because there was language in that tariff that suited them. It gave them the ability to say, we'll do it, or we'll defer to the Public Utility Commission, for example, to take certain actions. And there was provisions in the municipality section that did not give us that kind of leeway. So we are really glad to have this done. And what's of really particular note, the PUC staff, when we started talking about this and we got it to the point where we thought we could get them to file this and start the feedback process, they told us that they were behind, they're understaffed, and they weren't going to be able to get to it. Okay, that's kind of a wet blanket on our big party. And then Jenny, to her credit, was working with the staff very closely, saying, hey, what are the alternatives? What can we do? And they kind of agreed that if LP&L would take the participant feedback process on, and we do the stakeholder outreach as opposed to the staff having to do it, then we could more or less hand them a document that everybody's already seen and more or less agreed to, and maybe we could push this through on a more expedited basis. So to the credit of Jenny and everybody on staff who are participating in this, we are looking for this to be put before the commission tomorrow, the Public Utility Commission tomorrow, and then we're hoping we can get this on a timeline with final comments due back from any market participants by January 23rd. So hopefully by the end of February, we can have this pro forma tariff finalized and adopted. This is a big deal. It's another one of those check boxes that you got to have to show that we're making the progress that we need. So again, my special thanks to everybody on staff who got this done. I had very little to do with it. They did all the legwork. I'm going to say that straight up. Oops. All right. Let's turn the corner and talk a little bit about retail market design changes. So because of Winter Storm Uri, there was obviously some changes that needed to be taking place in the ERCOT market. Because of all the power outages and everything that happened associated with that, we did need to make some changes, and changes have been made. There we go. The Texas legislature undertook some legislation that would give directions to the Public Utility Commission to make sure that these changes were put into effect. And the Utility Commission is calling this a blueprint. There was a phase 0 of this blueprint that was before Winter Storm Uri in 2021. So that was kind of an as-is type scenario that they were able to study. The Public Utility Commission has hired E3, which is a consulting firm, to take a look at all these issues and make recommendations for changes that need to be made. So in phase 1, which started right after Winter Storm Uri, the ERCOT and the PUC, they implemented some operational and policy changes, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And these are already complete, or at least materially underway. We're in now what we call phase 2, and that's where they're actually looking at the market design of ERCOT itself to try to determine, are there things that need to be changed, blown up, done differently, whatever, in order to make sure that we can maintain a more reliable system if we go through similar scenarios as Winter Storm Uri. There is now a docket, PUC docket 52373 out, and there is input being given to the Public Utility Commission as we speak. We have joined a coalition, an industry coalition. Shell Energy North America has been headlining this, and they're working with about 180 interested people. Now that's probably going to be only, maybe 30 or 40 actual companies or organizations like us in the end, but we're kind of to a point in this process where we need to be coming together as groups to try to get our best voice put forward, and that's where we're at right now in that process. So again, phase 1, some of the changes they made some changes to pricing, obviously, and then the weatherization of power plants. You've heard us talk about this. We went through and did a lot of weatherization on our generators. Everybody else has done the same thing, because that was one of the biggest issues that we had. A lot of the generators, including the nuclears, were having things freeze up, pumps and whatnot. And when you start losing these critical components of these processes, then your generators come down. And that's exactly what we do not want to have happen. So the weatherization has been completed, and I'm not aware of any outstanding issues with that from any other market participants. They increase the industrial demand response budgets, so the really large industrial customers can come online and go offline, and they contribute to the welfare of the system by doing that. And so they want to make sure they had enough money in the budgets to account for that. And then they're looking at increased ancillary service procurements, standby, non-spinning, spinning reserves. That's all about generation, being ready to go. So like I said, all of these are either done or they're materially complete. I got fat fingers. There we go. So we're in phase 3, and I'm going to talk about proposals that have been given from E3, which is the consultant that's been advising the Public Utility Commission. When we originally started this process, all the market participants were expecting to have a load-serving entity reliability obligation. We were looking for a backstop reliability service, and then the DEC, the dispatchable energy credits. When E3 finished their report, instead of doing the LSEO, they came forward with a forward reliability market, and that's what they were recommending coming out of that report. And then there was a hybrid creation called the performance credit mechanism. The PUC staff is heavily favoring that right now, and I'll talk about that just a little bit more in a second. The backstop reliability service, the coalition that I mentioned that we joined, that's exactly what we're pitching as a way forward. It requires minimal changes to the way that ERCOT's operating, but we think that could be done very favorably. And then the dispatchable energy credits think about that as battery deployments that can be dispatched quickly. They're looking at expansion of those and then giving credits to the people that can participate in that market. And a couple of the PUC, one or two of the PUC commissioners seem to have an interest in the hybrid of the backstop reliability service and dispatchable energy credits. So there's questions being asked by the commission right now. Feedback is being sought, and the coalition that we're in is going to have something filed by probably December 8th, something like that. So if you look at the first three in that list that I gave, these are some variation of a capacity market. Right now, we're in an economic energy type market, and we made that transition from SPP, the Eastern Interconnection, into ERCOT because we wanted to get away from the capacity market scenario. It tended to increase prices, and we didn't really believe that it did that much for reliability. So here we are faced with the notion of maybe getting back into a type of capacity market again. The performance credit mechanism, again, that seems to be a favored look. This particular mechanism, ERCOT will take a one-year look at the worst 30 hours in the following year and try to make a determination on how to assign generators to those periods of time. And at the same time, load is going to have to marry up to that. And so that by default turns into a capacity market type scenario because you have to formally say, I'm going to cover these needs and this is how much it's going to cost. These three that we're looking at seem to be many multiples more expensive from some of the studies I've seen than the alternative that we're looking at. And we're really not sure that it's going to do that much more for reliability. One of the key initiatives coming out of the governor's office actually was they want more steel in the ground. In other words, more fossil-fired generators to be in the ground. I think these three mechanisms could certainly do that, but we're not sure. Our coalition is not really sure that that's going to be worth the price that you'd have to pay for it. So we want to make sure that there's a fair view being given across the full spectrum. The backstop reliability service, which is the coalition, that's what we're favoring. They're not worried about they're not looking at doing the year ahead type forward looking that the other products are looking at. And by the way, if somebody heard me talking about this, they'd argue me to the ground that I'm crazy, but it's this is my view of how this goes. So the backstop reliability is looking at a 2 to 4 hour forward looking uncertain ancillary service product. So generators can bid in, fast start generators, combustion turbines and things like that, can bid into this market more on a 2 to 4 hour basis. And instead of having to plan on this a full year in advance. And we're also looking at mechanisms of something we call reliability must run. If ERCOT deems that there's a reliability situation, they can call on certain generators and say, I need you to be online, I'm going to pay your price. So that's what reliability must run is. So you start combining these two things together, and we think that that's going to give us the amount of reliability that we're looking for, and it's not going to be near the cost burden as those other three suggestions might be. And I mean not nearly the cost burden. The BRS that I'm talking about that the coalition has favored, it's not the cheapest. The dispatchable energy credit is actually the cheapest. But it's really, the DEC is really finely tuned to be about more or less batteries. And so it favors only a really small component of the market. And with all the demands that are being put on lithium right now, I would be dubious about their ability to perform because we need the batteries that we have on the ground right now today, and we need that times about 10. So we need a whole lot more than we have, and that needs to be online by 2025. And that just doesn't really seem that realistic. And then, of course, just the nature of batteries themselves, they tend to degrade pretty quickly over time. So that performance is not going to be just as consistent as a fossil-fired generator might be, for example. So our next steps, I think this is my last slide on this. The coalition, we're wanting to file the comments and our proposal on or by December 8th. We're in the last stages. We've got one more call this afternoon. We're in the last stages of fine-tuning what this says, and we want to bring this forward and file it. We think this is a superior offering, and I think we're going to get a lot of attention. Once the Public Utility Commission goes through the mechanisms of figuring out what all these proposals might cost, I do believe that what we're offering is going to be seen as superior and will win out at the end of the day. It really is going to depend on how much stake we want to put into fossil-fired generation being on the ground. I think at the end of the day, that's going to be it. But the price of doing so, again, is going to be pretty severe. So the PUC's got an open meeting on December 15th. I'm anticipating that this is going to be heard then because they really want to keep this moving. So like I said, all of these proposals are impactful beginning in 2025. So until then, the phase one implementations that we've done, we're no worse off than we are today, which means we're in pretty good shape, because if all these generators are now weatherized and they can withstand the cold weather like that, then we should be in really good shape. So I'm not too concerned about the next couple of years. I think we'll be covered pretty well. Now, I've said a lot in a short period of time. Questions, concerns?
Mr. Ivy, could you go back to the one that showed what the coalition wants? Yes, this one, the BRS. This one is the one that would almost put the other three would put us back in the capacity market that we came out of. And this is more, is it, the coalition likes it because it's more reliable, and reliability is really the real issue right now for the grid?
Right. We believe this is going to help the reliability issue. It's going to incentivize these fossil-fired generators like combustion turbines or whatnot to be available and be ready to be online. So if they've got a 2 to 4 hour window that they can look at to ramp up and be there, this is going to fit their needs very well.
Okay, and when you talked about cost, the cost is to the consumer that would be passed along depending on which market design they went to.
That's correct.
And so the cost for the consumer would be the greatest with one of the 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, the load serving into the obligation, the LSEO is absolutely the highest. And that, just think about that as just where we came from in SPP. That's
Right.
very similar to that. And then the other two, and to be honest with you, the forward reliability mechanism, I haven't spent a lot of time on that one because that was brand new. But that doesn't look like that's getting any traction. The PCM seems to be the other one, but everything that we're seeing in the conversation that we're having in our coalition is still going to be like a capacity market, and it looks like it would drive the prices up.
Right, so that's why this BRS, that's why the coalition favors it, because the prime asset of this market redesign is reliability, which is what we're all looking for, correct?
That's right, and we also believe this is going to slow the retirements. One of the issues that they looked at was we've got a pretty large amount of generators that are in the retirement mode, and rather than retire them, we think this might incentivize them to keep investing in those and keep them online a little bit longer, and then eventually start building new ones.
Okay, so generally speaking, the best one for us is this BRS, the coalition favored one.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Or deep thoughts. So the next.
Here, 7 and 8 brings us to item 9, strategic planning.
And Chris is going to update us on the latest
Chris
grades.
stepped out. Oh, there he went around the corner. You snuck around. That's all you asked. Get out of there.
Good
Welcome,
afternoon.
Chris.
Just a quick update on some of the initiatives that we've prioritized under strategic planning as we continue the process. We've identified 2 priorities that we want to really focus in on, see if we can find some solutions, look at some options as we move toward our transition to competitive retail choice. The first one is to educate employees and customers about the moved retail market. What we found out during the strategic planning process that you participated in was there is a real need not only to educate our customers about what this move entails, but also to educate our employees. Because our employees, once they understand, then they can share what they know to their social circles and their friends, and they can help educate everyone about what this moved retail choice will do. The second priority that we want to focus on is to adjust compensation, which is salary and benefits, to enable stronger attraction and retention for mission-critical positions. Some of you, especially the HR committee, has been helping with this project that's ongoing, and it is continuing to go into the future. And I wanted to give you a little bit of information about what we're doing with these 2, not just tell you what we're doing, but actually show you some of the projects that we're working on with these priorities. The first one with educating employees and customers about the move to retail market. Matt has agreed to come up and share with you some of the information, all the projects he has going on about educating our customers, and then we can talk a little bit about us, what we're doing to educate our employees. Matt?
Thought I was going to avoid talking to you all this month, but no such luck. So let me back up here. I think I had. Oops, sorry. We're missing a slide here, but I'll just walk through this real quick. Obviously, we've been out there in front of the public a lot since we made this announcement in February, and we'll continue to do so with increasing intensity as we move through 2023 and we get closer to the point of folks going out to the shopping window and actually picking their provider this next summer, and then with the actual transition that we'll have in the fall of 2023. We've already, created a microsite on our own website. The front page of our website is fixed right now and will stay that way for the next year, so that if you go to lpnl.com, competition is right there up front. You click a button and you go through to this page that will have a series of tabs and different information to help our customers. If you go through right now, we've been putting together explainer videos, and we'll be rolling out several new versions of that over the next couple of months. The first, and all the explainer videos will be about the same style. They'll be animated. They'll be shorter in nature. The ones that we have right now talk more about globally what is competition and reinforcing for customers that they don't need to do anything right now. But as we roll out new ones, it'll kind of get more into the weeds in terms of how they shop and things to look for and things to avoid, and then important dates as we get closer. There is a journey to competition map that we have up on the website that we'll continue to update. As you can see right now, we're really at the point in time where we have put an RFP out and we're going through the process of selecting a provider of last resort and default providers, which will be important when we make this transition. But as we go forward, we're going to have important dates that we're going to do a lot of highlighting in terms of paid media, which you can see on this next screen. Right now, since really the beginning of summer, we've been doing full media ad buys on radio and television. We've been running radio ads. If you go to different websites, this is an example of what you will see. If you go to kcbd.com or Fox 34, if you go to Everything Lubbock, you'll see these banners and they take you directly to our site. So we've seen just from the analytics of our own site that folks that are visiting the retail page, that is, doubling or more every single month as we continue to push these ads and drive folks to it. One thing that I wanted to point out is that in terms of just getting in front of the media resources here in Lubbock, if I'm just pulling off the top of my head, I had a slide on this, but since we made the announcement in February of this past year that we were making this move, after that initial round of news media, we participated in over 40 separate news interviews related to this project, which has produced over 80 individual news stories that have run here locally about this project. And we're going to continue to keep that same momentum up as we go forward, really, again, targeting things that customers need to do. That it may increase a little bit because I'm sure I'll be talking with KCBD here about all of these things, and it'll air tonight, but that's an important part of it. But internally, Chris mentioned that folks want to make sure that they're educated. Clint's group, Jamie's group, their trainers, they've done a really good job of taking all the information that we've been putting on the website and giving out to the public and making sure that we're training internally so that folks that are receiving calls know where to direct people and know general information so that they can answer those questions. Increasingly, as we get close to this transition, we really want to get to a point in time where we have enough information up on this website or available for people to pick up here in the lobby or given out through the community that folks that are calling in, that the people on the phones can point them to resources where they can do more extensive research so that that person on the phone is not having to go A to Z explaining every single bit of competition, not just why, but how. Another important facet of this, too, is that since just the first of summer, I made a goal of trying to speak to a community group every single week. And At this point, we're doing a pretty good job of hitting at least small groups every single week, some bigger groups speaking to, the Kiwanuses and the Rotaries and the Lions Clubs and these. But again, I always have to thank Mr. Fields because he's, for example, been able to put me in front of a lot of different religious organizations. They're going to be a key component that we're going to need to talk to. And so we're going to continue to work with those types of specific groups, not just, if you take churches, for example, not just, for larger churches or smaller churches, how they themselves go and purchase their power, but also using it as folks in your congregation, can you please help be a disseminator of information to them as well? So that, again, we can try to hit as many people as we possibly can. You'll always hear me say this on any of these big campaigns. Our goal is to try to use every single avenue and every single resource possible to get this message and this information out. But at the end of the day, there will be folks that will not receive this. There will be folks that when we come to the day when they need to choose, when we get to that deadline, they will say, I haven't even heard about this despite our best efforts. And so that's where, some of the things that we're doing to make sure the transition goes smoothly for those folks so they don't fall through the cracks is so important. The default providers, making sure if somebody doesn't pick their provider, that they are randomly assigned one that gives them market-based rates and then allows them to go choose, but they don't fall through the cracks. But these are all the types of things we're going to educate on. And here internally, we've got a group that has started putting together monthly newsletters. So going out to our employees, these monthly newsletters give them a snapshot of where we are in this project and things they should know, and just also kind of adjacent information that can help them not just explain it when they're at work, but also be ambassadors when they're out in the community, they're talking to friends, so that they know what's going on as well. So that internal communication will continue to go on, and it's going to be almost as important as the external communication, because we want to make sure our folks, if they're out there wearing an LP&L shirt or a City of Lubbock Utilities shirt, somebody asks them a question at the grocery store, they can answer that question. So real quick run through of what we're doing, and I will hand it back to Chris unless there are any questions.
Questions?
Okay.
Fields?
Matt, do
Yes.
we have a timeline on when the RFP will be back and presented to the EUB? Or the Polar?
That's for the Polar?
Yes.
The responses are back from the committee by December 9th.
Okay.
So coming up Friday next week, and then we'll have those back, and so those will be available to the board right after that.
So, 4 days, and we're looking at bringing these to you for the Polar and everything is through the February board.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Rose,
Thank you.
welcome back, Chris.
Great. Matt talked about communications with the employees and the customers. I wanted to just throw one slide in that we have had a big movement with the management team going and meeting with employees, talking about this whole movement to retail competition. What does it entail? How can we educate the customers? How do we educate our employees? And I had the privilege of participating in a new working group we have with our technology. And one of the slides that came out of that is if you look at our current resources being 3 primary buckets with equipment, human, and technology, each one of those being a resource. Right now, when you look at equipment, we bought a lot of new equipment here. You've seen the big expenditures, the big capital expenditures on equipment. As you look at how that equipment could be portrayed, I believe you could say that's a pretty solid line with the amount of capital expenditures we've had on our equipment. Which leads to the human resources. We're looking at moving some employees around, employees who were previously doing one job, doing a different job, maybe in a whole different unit of LP&L. And that there's more to come on that. You probably already know some about it. So it's more of a kind of a dotted line. And when you look at our technology resources, we have some really nice technology out there for each one of our divisions. What we found out is that technology does not play well with each other. It doesn't interface well. So that's why you see the dot line and the solid line. Where we would like to get to by this time next year, definitely by October, is we want solid lines on all 3 of those resources, all of them turning, all of them being solid. This is just an example of one of the employee meetings that we had. I know Clint's group, he's had coffee with Clint. Harvey usually has donuts with Harvey. He likes to bring donuts. We like Harvey. Yes. Blair, I'm not for sure. Blair, have you had any incentives with your employee meetings?
No.
No. It's just come talk to Blair. Open mic with Blair. How's that sound? Ask him any question. But these meetings are going on, and they're fun. They're very interesting in trying to gather what the employees truly understand, how much they see about the big picture, and then us being able to educate them more so they can in turn educate their social circles. The next priority I briefly mentioned was adjusting compensation, salary, and benefits to enable stronger attraction and retention for mission-critical employees or positions. So what we've done is we tried to look at the resources, and we've had discussions with the board in the past about compensation studies that we've participated in the past that have been part of the City of Lubbock's larger compensation study initiatives. Some of the resources we've gathered today to kind of look to see for some of these mission-critical positions, resources, we have the American Public Power Association's 2022 Public Power Survey, which surveys municipals all across the nation, all the way down to the South Central region where we're at. We also had the management team and supervisors actually do open records requests to other municipalities. We sent open records requests to San Antonio, Austin, Denton, Garland to find out what their compensation structure looks like, what the salary is, what the benefits look like. We've also obtained the 2022 Northwest Utilities Salary and Wage Survey by Millman, and it's another tool to give us some ideas on how we compare, how we stack up with compensation and benefits in the industry so we can make sure that we can attract and retain those mission-critical employees. This is just an example of the Public Power Survey report that we have been going through and will continue to be going through. This is the Millman Northwest Utilities Salary and Wage Survey. So we have several different resources that we're looking at, trying to make sure that our compensation is in line, being salary and benefits, to keep our employees and attract employees. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Any questions?
Question for Chris. So once you get the compensation and those things done, is there adjustments to budget, or does that go into next year? How do we make sure if we're under or below or right in line, how are we going to address that?
I think maybe we've talked about this a little bit in the past. We're going to take a targeted approach. We're looking at mission-critical employees first. Right now, Clint and his group, they have the market operations group that we're trying to get stood up. We have that before HR as we speak. We want to formulate that group and make sure that they're set up and compensated in the manner that they're supposed to be. This is a brand-new group, never done before here. Then next, we're going to follow on with Blair's group out at T&D and do a little bit more comprehensive review of that group. So some of this is going to be hitting in this year's budget to directly address your question. Some of this is going to be put into next year's budget probably.
Okay.
Be a mixture of things.
Nothing required by us. Y'all, that's all taken care of.
Not yet, sir. Not yet.
All right. Yes.
Is cost of living one of the considerations or discussions?
Yes, those factors such as cost of living definitely would be considered, and I'm sure most of you have been involved with compensation studies with your organizations that you've been a part of in the past. The City of Lubbock's last compensation study, we believe, was done in 2014, and that cost of living would be one factor that they considered back in 2014 when they looked at our salaries across the City of Lubbock organization, including Lubbock Power and Light.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Thanks, Chris. Taking us to item 10, correct? I'm on questions still. Well, I think we've got you at Financial and Capital on 11. Oh, we're still in 9? We hit the...
What's that agenda number?
I'm 11. I'm 11, yeah.
So do you want to hit 9, 10 first, or skip to 11, come back to 10?
What is 10?
10 is to discuss and take possible minute action, setting a time, date, and place for a special meeting. Keep them in order, right? Keep it in order?
Yeah, we
Yes. Will you hit the, Casey, will you hit the button once, please? All right, this is item, I thought it was in here. It's in my board packet. That's where it's, Got it right here. I'm confused, guys. Item 10, discuss and take possible minute action, setting a time, date, and place for a special meeting of the Electric Utility Board for strategic planning. On page of your iPad here, page 34, there's proposed dates of February 13th, 2023, February 23rd, 2023, and February 27th, 2023. Is there any light on, is that an hour meeting? Is it a... Got to get on, got to get recorded.
I'm still trying to get my agenda pulled up. These meetings that we're talking about are, I'm going to try to keep these to about 3 hours. I don't want to keep you guys out all day like we needed to do before. So probably about 3 hours. I'm anticipating we go from 10 to maybe 1, sir.
Okay.
1, maybe 2.
So as we've done in the past, we'll look at your calendars and then...
When's the board meeting in
That's what I was
February?
trying to-
Is it the regular,
It should be the regular one, I believe, for that one.
is it February? I don't have it
It's on the
down.
21st.
In February. Is it the 20th?
February 21st.
February 21st is regular board.
So, Louis, we'll start with you all the way down the end. What date works best for you? Any of those work? Dr. Ramirez? February 13th, February 23rd, and February 27th. Okay, one vote 13. Dan? Good? I'm keeping stride here. We got 4. We only need 1 more.
Any date's fine
Any
with me.
dates? Okay. Peter? All good. All right, well then we will entertain a motion to take some action on this for February 13th for the proposed special meeting date. Have a motion by Mr. Schultz. Got a second by Dan. All those in favor do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same. That one carries. 10 to 1 o'clock. Okay. All right, now, item 11, which is discussion of financial and capital statements at all.
So we're going to go through our budget to actuals for September. As y'all know, we're in the middle of audit right now. So we're just going to show y'all these numbers. These are subject to change, although I don't think they will. So if you look at our year-to-date, we're coming in at $339 million for our operating revenues. It's about 115% over what we were budgeted in our charges for services. As we've discussed before, that's directly related to our purchase of power and fuel costs. As you can see, those are 115% over budget as well. We're coming in about 100% of budget for our T-cost revenues as well as our hold harmless payment, and we are under budgeted 88% for our departmental expenses. That's mostly going to be due to Massengale being down. It came under budget about $2.9 million for the year. Do y'all have any questions?
Questions? Ms. Stafford?
Just a question. Looks like we're about 16 million more to the good from the budget. How is that surplus? Does that just go to our fund balance?
So, correct. That's going to go to our fund balance. It also presumes in there, too, that we're going to collect the $18 million that, at this stage, for the under-collect that we're currently at, we have an under-collect position of $18 million. We're going to collect that, presumes that. To the degree that we're over, that would carry over into our reserves. Does that answer your question?
So in the, we're over-collected that 18 million. That's
We're
what you're
under-collected.
Under-collected that 18
Under-collected.
million there.
Correct.
But for the year end, where are we on our reserve fund dollars?
For our fund reserve, we're very, very close to about 70 million.
70 million?
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
No.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank y'all.
And that brings us, no other items, to the consent agenda, items 12 through 19. Does anyone have any discussion on any of those? If not, I'll entertain a motion for items 12 through 19 to be approved.
Move to approve, Dan.
Thanks, sir. One motion, need a second? Got a second? Any discussion there? All those in favor, just so by saying aye. Opposed by the same? One carries.
For the minutes, who made that second?
Lewis? Sorry. And that brings us to item 20. We are adjourned. Thank you all.